There, it's recording.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay.
Okay.
Welcome everyone to tonight's webinar. It's good to see everyone who's currently here. And we'll have more people joining us as we start. Before we actually introduce our guest, I wanted to show you a photo. And we're going to start using the chat box. Phil was just talking about using the chat box. If you can, if everyone who's listening, do you know where this is? What is this? Where is it? You can answer those two questions. What is it? And where is it? Thank you. Someone said
Maria
Seattle.
Eugenia
That's
is
right.
right.
Yes. Does anyone know what this huge kind of thing is in the middle of the city? Anyone know? Any guesses? Okay, so in this webinar, as we get started, we'd like to have as much interaction as we can with you guys. So if you guys can, there's a restaurant viewpoint. There is a restaurant on the top, that's right. And does anyone know the name? And so anyone out there, and if you can use the chat box, we're gonna be asking you questions throughout the session. So it'll be really good to hear from you. Here we go. Sophia says it's a Space Needle. Seattle Tower. No, it's actually the Space Needle. So Sophia is right. So thank you, Sophia.
This is not Canada.
It's not Canada, no.
It's not Niagara Falls.
It's not, no, it's the other way. We're actually going to show a map in a moment. So thanks for those
we have a map.
answers, and we're going to show you a little bit more. So you'll see where Seattle is in just a moment. So it's a Space Needle, and this is in Seattle, Washington.
Sydney.
Sydney, not quite, no. All right, thank you guys. So with this, I want to welcome my mother, Tara Marino, and here are some of her details, and this is what she's going to be talking about. So, hello, how are you tonight?
I'm good tonight. These are some of the, what?
No, just curious. So for you, it's, in Bogota, it's 5 o'clock. What time is it in Seattle right now?
In Seattle right now, it's 3 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
In the afternoon.
In the afternoon. So it's still good afternoon to you.
You are 2 hours ahead of us, yes.
Okay, yeah. And so what's the weather like right now? It's a
beautiful day right now. It's spring in Seattle. Seattle is full of flowers.
All right, good. Well, with this, we're going to introduce what we're going to do today is my mom was going to tell her a little bit about her history, some of the facts that are right there. She actually, as you can see, she lived in Bogota for quite a few years. So she's going to share some of that history. And then we're going to talk about life right now with the current situations with the coronavirus. For her, it may be in Seattle, in Washington State, and in the whole country. So let's get started. So it's all yours. I'm just going to show people the slides, and you tell me when you want me to move to the next slide.
This is Bogota. When I first lived in Bogota, Bogota was much smaller than it is now. And although in this slide there are many cars, when I lived in Bogota, traffic was not a problem. The city was much smaller and the air was cleaner. So I lived in Bogota starting in 1968. Go ahead.
We've had, just really quickly, we've had some really nice clean air in Bogota because we haven't had as much traffic these days. So it might be similar to what it was like when you lived here. Less cars. Yeah.
We've had pollution. The same in Seattle. The coronavirus is wonderful because the air is clean. Yeah. One of my favorite places in Colombia is Villa de Leyva. We used to go there a lot. And when I used to go to Villa de Leyva, there were no tourists. I taught English at the university, La Universidad Nacional, the National University. And the National University in 1968 and 1970 was very revolutionary. Camilo Torres was the chaplain at the National University. I see Che Guevara in the photo.
The famous Che Guevara Plaza.
Uh-huh.
Shall we continue?
Continue. This is Seattle. Seattle is a very beautiful city. You can see the Space Needle in one picture, and you can see a lake, and Mount Rainier is a famous landmark. Mount Rainier is a volcano. It's a very beautiful place. It is a national park. I love Mount Rainier. There are many boats in Seattle. Does anyone have questions about Seattle?
Actually, we have, before that, remember we have a couple more slides to kind of tell us where Seattle is, and then we're going to ask questions about Seattle. So let's continue really quickly.
Okay,
everyone,
so where is Seattle?
People who are asking, where is Seattle? Does anyone
This is a map of the United States of America. Can you find Seattle?
Let's see, we'll hope that everyone can see Seattle, but just in case you can't, I'm going to use this marker here. You see me marking here, and I'm circling Seattle there in the top corner up there.
Seattle is the farthest west in the United States and north. We have a border with Canada.
A lot of people confuse Seattle with or Washington State, where Seattle is, with Washington, D.C.
Yes, that's a common problem. There are two Washingtons. Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States, and Washington State is different. It's a state up in the northwest corner.
When you travel to Seattle, it takes quite a while because you have to take a plane. Usually, sometimes there's flights that go to Atlanta or to maybe Houston, and then it's a good 6 hours away from the East Coast or from the South. 6 hours, 6.5 hours.
Longer to Miami, maybe 9 hours to Miami in an airplane. It's very far away.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's continue. Yeah, the Northwest is the Northwest.
In the Northwest.
Okay, actually, we have more maps. That's right. So first map kind of shows us the state of Washington. You want to talk a little bit about what's there?
Well, the state of Washington is very beautiful. We are next to Canada. Vancouver at the top of the map is in Canada. All the green part is mostly mountains, and then the white part is mostly desert.
Mm-hmm.
Should we bring up Seattle?
We have
this is a map of Seattle. Mm-hmm. Seattle is located between a lake. On the east side is a very long lake, and on the west side is the sea. It's salt water on the west side.
All right. So we see that, I'm sorry, I think you were going to ask questions.
Yeah, there's mountains on the east and mountains on the west. Seattle was designated a city of literature by UNESCO. Yes, Maria Eugenia, in Seattle, it rains a lot. Mm-hmm. It doesn't rain a lot as far as quantity, but it rains many, many hours of many, many days.
Yep. Short summers and lots of usually unpredicted weather in terms of might be very rainy all year long. Yeah. Okay.
With weather in Seattle, you can always be happy. It will change in a few minutes.
Sounds like Bogota sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then, what happened here? Here we go. So I guess we want to ask people in the audience, what do you know about Seattle? So what other what brings mind, what do you think of when you think of Seattle? Any particular maybe enterprises, companies, universities, movies, TV shows?
Boeing. is one of the biggest companies in Seattle. That's right. There are movies. There's a
Which
movie,
movies?
Sleepless in Seattle is a famous movie. Grunge. Yes, grunge has its home in Seattle.
Yep.
Kurt Cobain. Grey's Anatomy.
That's a favorite of this generation, Grey's Anatomy. And I think they show the Space Needle quite a bit, don't they? There's supposed to be a hospital right next to the Space Needle. And they're always going there. Yeah.
Frasier also is in
Good
Seattle.
show.
50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey. Oops, oh, sorry. All right, we have some good questions.
Have you heard of Starbucks?
We certainly, Grey's Anatomy times 2. Someone went to Seattle. Yes, Starbucks. Everyone has heard of Starbucks, right? Tell us about Starbucks a little bit.
Starbucks started in Seattle. There are many coffee houses in Seattle. Starbucks is one of many coffee houses. Near my house in Seattle, there is a coffee house named Santo. Santo is owned by a Colombian soccer player. His name is Freddy Montero.
Oh, okay.
It's a very good coffee house. I prefer Santo to Starbucks.
Starbucks has become quite industrialized.
Amazon is a big company based in Seattle.
Museum of Pop Culture. Do you know about what is that? Yeah.
You can see the Museum of Pop Culture in this picture. Do you see the blue building at the base of the Space Needle?
Is it, let me see if I can use
That's the Museum of Pop Culture.
Let's see. I'll try to use my pen here if I can, if it lets me. Oh, went to the wrong one.
Behind that building, do you see the building with the green windows? That one, yeah. That's the Bill Gates Center.
Oh, okay. And what's in the Bill Gates Center?
It's a charity. It's a foundation. Bill Gates spends his money from offices in that building. Right now, he's trying to get a vaccine for the virus.
Right. Oh, and there's also, of course, huge, the Amazon industry is all, the headquarters are there.
Amazon headquarters and Microsoft, very close to Seattle.
Okay. Two people have raised their, do you want to say something? We have Paula would like to say something. And then after that, Sanjay, go ahead and open your mic if you like and ask the question. Sure. I'll allow you to talk. Paula?
I think the micro, there it is.
Yeah. Hi, Paula. Oh, lost Paula, but let's ask the next guest here to talk. Is that Sanjay? Sanjay, you want to ask a question?
No, I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry. You had your hand up.
I'm sorry.
So let's just quickly review. If you want to ask something in the chat box, since there's so many of us, and of course we'll be happy to let you speak as well. And if you do want to do that, go ahead and raise your hand again. Okay, let's continue. So now you were going to talk about your origins. Tell us.
My family comes from Scotland, French Canada, and Norway. So my last name before I got married was Thompson from Norway. My grandfather came from Scotland and my grandmother from Quebec.
All right, let's continue. So, oh, one interesting thing about Washington maybe is that it's a pretty new migration, let's say. It's not,
Yes.
yeah, it was settled, in kind of late in terms of the rest of, of most of
Yes,
America.
that's a good point. Yes. It was settled beginning in 1850.
Hmm. Yeah, lots of immigrants from these,
Lots of immigrants from Scandinavia.
from Scandinavia, right.
Mhm.
All right, let's continue. So let's,
This is my beautiful neighborhood, Ravenna. The houses are old. Most of them are about 100 years old, and they're very beautiful. And we have a big park this is Ravenna Park. I go there many days. I like to walk in Ravenna Park.
okay. All right, so now we're going to get into a bit of life under quarantine. And actually, before you answered the questions, you and I were talking, and we left the title quarantine, but it's not actually a term that is normally used as much. What is being used these days?
Well, we talk about stay at home.
Mm-hmm. Lockdown, when you hear the word lockdown, what does that kind of?
That's more in New York. They use the term lockdown in New York. In Seattle, we say stay at home.
Oh, okay, good. And someone here said it's beautiful. It is. Ravenna and Washington State in general, and Seattle is just really cool.
It's very beautiful. It's a very beautiful place. I'm very lucky.
So yeah, tell us about a little bit about what's life like.
The first case of the virus was detected in Washington State near Seattle. A man visited his family in Hunan, China, and he came back from China. He got sick, and it was discovered he had the virus. And then that was on January 19th. On February 28th, another case was discovered. Of course, the virus was everywhere by then, but they hadn't learned how to find it. So beginning in March, there was a recommendation that old people needed to stay at home, but totally voluntary. And then little by little, things began to happen. The University of Washington closed. All students had to start studying at home. The public schools stopped. All the high schools had to study from home. Work, where possible, everyone had to work from home. That included me. I had to go home and work from home. Then by the end of March, there was a recommendation that people stay at home. People in Seattle are good at staying at home, but our stay at home, I think, is a little bit different from your stay at home. We can go out and walk. We can take walks. I can go to Ravenna Park every day, but we can't go near other people. We have to maintain 6 feet of difference between us. All the stores are closed, with the exception of essential businesses. The grocery stores have a special hour before they open for old people and sick people. So for example, I go to the grocery store at 7 o'clock in the morning. Everyone else can start at 8. You have to wear a mask. This is my mask. I thought I'd show you.
Where did you get that from? Did you buy it?
Etsy. Yes, I bought it. It's comfortable. It's nice. Starting on May 18th, there will be a requirement to wear a mask indoors. And on the street, it's voluntary. There's a lot of...
Are people good about social distancing, about staying away from you?
Yes, in Seattle, very much. When I walk on the sidewalk, when someone comes toward me, either I move onto the street or they move onto the street. There's almost no traffic now.
Mm.
But that's in Seattle.
Right. We're going to talk probably a bit about some of the cultural differences in a little bit about, between Seattle and other parts of the region, of the country. Okay.
So downtown is empty now. There's only the homeless are downtown.
Okay, we have a couple more questions here. Yeah, it's similar. I haven't been downtown here in Bogota, and I imagine it's pretty quiet. Well, these days it's probably busier because as of Monday, we started some regular business. Okay, let's talk about some of these other things. You already talked
Has
about.
anyone close? My father got COVID-19. My father is 96 years old. He went to the hospital and he survived. He was very sick. And he was in the newspaper. It was news that my 96-year-old father was very sick and then was able to survive, and now he's home again.
Yeah. That's amazing, being 96. you should, yeah.
Almost impossible.
One of the hardest things about this virus is that you can't visit relatives.
No.
You can't. When he was in the hospital, no one could visit him, right?
There's no visits in any hospitals.
Yeah.
And he lives in a retirement home. He lives in a place where old people live. There are no visits permitted at all.
So yeah, so you've told us a little bit about your life. How has it changed? What other things have impacted you, and what is different now?
I don't do so many things. I have no book group.
Oh, right, your book group.
Yes, that's so important to me, but no book group. I go to theater a lot, maybe 1-2 times a week. I go to theater. There's no theater.
Yeah.
That's not movie. That's live theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. I rarely see people. I had lunch with a friend last week.
Oh.
We both bought takeout at a restaurant and then sat at a table outdoors in a park 6 feet distance from each other. But
Well,
it was
nice.
nice.
You can at least do that. I don't know if anyone is doing this in Bogota. I haven't been able to do anything like that here. So
Well,
that's
that was
nice
very
that
unusual. Yeah.
So
I live my life now. I'm very alone now, where I didn't used to be alone.
Sure. That's the case for many people in the whole world, I think. It's just,
I think so.
Our world is upside down. It's very, very different. Okay, well, we'd like to know if there's any other questions until now about just life in Seattle. What is it like? And then we're going to go on to a second section where we're going to go into, dive into maybe some politics, some health issues, healthcare issues. We're going to ask you to decide. But before then, is there anything else that you want to know about Seattle, about my mother's life? She's
a very interesting life now. I take 2 walks every day.
That's pretty good. And it's such a nice place to walk into. It's like
it is.
All right. So let's dive into the questions. So we have 3 questions that we'd like to ask you to decide. Yeah. And so these are 3 topics and we'd like you to vote. So we'd like you to decide if you want my mother to continue talking about cultural and political differences regarding the virus. We thought it would be interesting maybe to talk a bit the differences between the federal and state power and the decision-making that's happening, especially around the virus. And we also thought it could be interested to talk about just healthcare. I think this might be a lot of questions about healthcare. Oh, people are asking, but actually, and I should have done this before, I'm going to launch a poll. So everyone will get a poll. A lot of people are saying B. Let's see. So I just did the poll. Thank you for those who wrote in the chat box. If you can do the same and do it in the poll. And here we say that so far B is a preferred topic. That's great. We'll let it we'll let people answer for a few more minutes and see which direction we go in the next half an hour or so that we have left. We'll do about 15 minutes more, 20 more minutes, and then hopefully you'll have more questions. All right, let's finish there. I think it's pretty clear. Oh, let's continue with the poll just in case there's more people who wanna join in. That way you can get ready to talk about federal and state power. We're ready for everything and anything, don't worry.
It's a very big subject.
Yeah, we were talking about it yesterday, but it's a very complex subject, isn't it?
It's a complex subject.
Okay, we're gonna stop the poll there. Thank you for everyone who voted. And we're going to dive into state power. And the winner is B.
Okay, there's a clear winner.
There's a clear winner. So let me see. Let me just get organized here for a second. All right. So let's start with some basic kind of geographical information, maybe. This is, I don't know, this is about Washington, but we'll go into the other maps too, where we have the different states. You know? What is the different? Okay. So before we continue, if you have any questions, we actually rather you use, if that's all right, the chat box. We will keep this question. What are the difficult things about living in Bogota? Okay, we'll go back to that at the end, but for now, let's continue. All right. Here
this is,
oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead and talk about this if you want.
Well, the difference, some of the differences are illustrated by the difference in Washington State. The map on the left is a political map from the last presidential election. The part of the state that is pink and red voted for Mr. Trump. The part of the map that is blue voted for Hillary Clinton. On the right is a map of the virus in Washington State. The dark part is where there's a lot of virus. The light blue, there's very little virus. So the political considerations follow. There's more virus.
Sorry.
And more people who are more liberal in the urban areas. That's on the map where there's more virus and where people voted for Hillary Clinton. The blue parts are urban. The red and pink parts are rural. They're farmers. In general, the farmers are more conservative and the urban people are more liberal. And this is true in all of the United States.
I think it's probably important to clarify that although there's less blue in the map, in the Washington State map, it's a much more highly populated. Because
yes,
Seattle,
the blue part of the map is where all the people live. It's concentrated. That's where Amazon is and Boeing is and Microsoft is. That's where the people are. And where the red is, there's very little population, yes.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna jump ahead to one of the slides where we'll go back to this in just a moment. So we have state versus, let's go to this map first, which is a similar kind of map, but of the whole country. So you can explain a little bit like the political kind of differences maybe.
Well, the blue parts are more populated. The red parts are less populated. The red parts are Republican. They like President Trump. The blue parts are Democrats. They don't like President Trump. This is very general. And the purple are changing. I should say I am very anti-Trump. so you know who I am.
I understand. This has become a very, it's a huge thing. It's a very divisive, lately, politics have been very divisive in the United States.
Very divisive. For example, face masks.
Yeah.
People who are pro-Trump don't wear face masks. Mr. Trump does not wear a face mask.
Right.
People who are anti-Trump in general wear face masks.
Right. Yeah.
As one example.
Very
People
divisive.
the people in the red states don't believe the virus is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And they have very little virus. The people in the blue states have a lot of virus.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe the virus is a problem for everyone.
Yeah. Let's go to the slide of state versus federal. We have a few kind of their, kind of main key ideas. And if you want to just develop each one, and the whole thing about like power struggles, to tell us. So
it's good to say Colombia is a federal country. There's a lot of power at the federal government level. The United States is much less federal. There's much more power in the states. So there's ongoing a big power struggle between the federal and the state. Mm-hmm. One day, President Trump said, "I'm totally in charge." This can't be possible. He can't be in charge. The governor of each state is in charge of the virus in each state. But the federal government has the money. Mm-hmm. So who gets the money and who gives the money? Mm-hmm. Right now, a lot of the money to fight the virus is going to the red states, mm-hmm. the states that don't need it, but the states that are friendly to President Trump. President Trump changed his mind. One day he said, "I'm in charge." The next day he said, "The governors are in charge." And that's true today. The governors are in charge. Each governor does their own thing in each state.
Yeah.
In the state of Washington, we have a very good governor. He's very intelligent. He's doing a good job. But other states with Republican governors are not managing the virus. They just don't care. They don't believe in the virus. Mm. So some states now this week are beginning to open up. They're opening the restaurants, they're opening the theaters, they're opening the beaches. Everything is opening. Other states, like my state, Washington State, is going to open very slowly. There's a plan in place to open very slowly. And each step in the plan to open depends on things going well. But each state will make its own plan. Right now,
that makes it very complicated because it's a huge country and so many states.
And it's even worse. In some states, for example, in Texas, the government of Texas wants the state to open, but the big cities do not. So the big city, because obviously there will be more virus in the big cities. So the big cities are telling their people to stay in lockdown. But the governor of Texas is telling the cities they can't do that. They have to open. So they're fighting.
Yeah. That makes it, it's interesting that this whole, I'm sure it's very similar. All of it, this is a common kind of experience, worldwide, global experience. And this has brought us, to kind of shared kind of, because the same thing here. For example, our mayor here is a very strong woman, mm-hmm. and she has led many of the decision making in Bogota. Well, Bogota being the biggest city, of course, in Colombia, And so a lot of what she has said is being done, and then the national government sometimes has to then go along with what she's saying. But then there's a huge kind of power struggle between the national government and, in our case, the big city of Bogota mayor. So it's a similar kind of, dispute.
Yeah. We're lucky here. Our mayor is very good. Our mayor and our governor agree, but the people in the red part of the state don't agree.
Right. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that. Like people, this has brought it's this pandemic. We're all in it together.
Yes, the virus doesn't care what your politics are, right? The virus has no politics. Yeah.
Yet there's a lot of divisions. This has created a lot of divisions and lots of like frustrations among people. So maybe we talked a little bit about versus state versus federal, just to understand
and
that
city versus state and people in the same state versus each other.
Mm-hmm. Versus, maybe we can look at some of we had a couple of images here. Oh yeah, well, this is just to show it's just a divided country in many ways, and it's huge. It's
huge. It's a very big country, and each state has its own history and its own way of doing business. But as we saw in Washington state, there's many divisions within each state.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple of slides here to talk about how people feel, like the frustration that people feel sometimes regarding this pandemic, what the government is imposing on people, what the governments and like local governments versus federal governments, and the messages that they're getting. Tell us a little bit about that, and maybe we can go through some of these images.
This is the capital city of the state of Washington, Olympia, and the people who do not want to stay at home, and the people who do not want to wear masks, and the people who do not want to obey any rules are going there to demonstrate against all the rules. They want personal liberty, complete personal liberty. Mm-hmm. This is happening all over the country. This is in Washington state. These are the people from the red part of the state. Notice none of them are wearing masks.
Right. And this is, and of course, Olympia is the capital of Washington. Seattle, although it's the biggest city, is not the capital. United States, the capital of the states are usually not the biggest city. But
that's right.
They're in the middle.
Yeah, Seattle is the biggest city. Here's this is in Michigan. This is another state where these protests are happening. They're happening every place. My constitutional rights are essential. The person at the top believes that, and that person is wearing a mask, but their right to do what they want personally is what matters. No one can give them any rules.
Mm-hmm. The whole concept of freedom, like what is, in the right, to my personal freedom.
Yes, it's personal freedom. And President Trump is telling people that they should have personal freedom.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about your personal freedom versus I
believe that we all have to respect the virus, that we all are in this fight against the virus together, and that all the people of the world have to fight it together as best we can. And I believe that wearing a mask, keeping distance from each other, is part of participating in that fight. That's my feeling.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we have one more. This is an interesting one.
This is an interesting one. In general, the people who believe in personal freedom believe in the personal freedom to carry guns. And a lot of them do carry guns. How many guns does this person have? Can you see?
What do people say? How many guns are in the photo? Trick question. Or
Trick
maybe
question.
not that difficult.
Lots.
Who knows how many he actually has, you know?
I don't know.
How
Visible,
many?
3.
Yeah,
In my opinion, 3 are too many.
3 guns. Can you imagine just walking around a coffee shop with
Yeah.
with 3 guns?
Yeah.
And tell us about, what do you think? This is a huge thing. I have no idea what this is. Do you know what is this thing in the back? Like, it's not even
I
a
don't
gun.
know. It's a very
Does anyone
big gun.
know? Yeah. Anyway, but
I think my opinion is that man must feel very small.
Right. Yeah, that's probably a reason to feel like you need to be protected with guns. But it's a whole thing going back of personal freedom and a sense that I have a right to protect myself and
to do anything I want to do. Mm-hmm.
To do anything I want to do. Okay, good. Okay, guys. Well, we're near the end, I think. I believe that's the actual, slides that we have for you. This is going back. Oh, there's another one because we just looked at some people.
Well, we should have one anti-Trump protest. This was yesterday, and this is in front. Can you see the place, the location of this anti-Trump protest? Look in the back of the picture. Yes. Yes, Trump International Hotel. And those are body bags. The idea is that there are dead people in the bags, and it's Trump lies, people die. So there's a lot of problems, a lot of division. My city is in favor of fighting the virus. People stay home willingly. People follow the rules. We're careful, but other people aren't.
Well, it's a very local thing. It's a state in the United States, a state thing, in the country, and a global issue. And it seems, and I think many of you have probably read about this, those in international relations, for example, or anyone really who's interested in this subject, that we're all in this together. And unless countries start to collaborate and really kind of work with each other in fighting the virus, we don't have a very good chance of, of fighting this well. So unfortunately, some governments are very much into just me and my own and protecting myself, and that's it.
Yeah, people were worried about the Allstate, Seattle, and every place is starting to open a little, and we're worried about that.
Right.
So we'll see. I've enjoyed my chat with you.
Thank you very much. I think that's the end, but we would love to entertain any final questions. We do have about 10 minutes left. So if anyone wants to ask something or give us your opinion as well, say something, about how you feel about what we've talked about, maybe what's happening in Bogota, anything that you want to either comment on or ask questions about, we're all ears. Okay, we have some things. I'm going to go back. Well, people are maybe thinking if they want to ask questions, they still have a bit of time. I want to go back. We got a question of what we in the Q&A box, and it says, it says, what was, I think, difficult thing about living in Bogota? So we're going to go back really quickly to your life in Bogota. And I think someone wants to know about living in Bogota. And then we have a couple people who've raised their hands. So that's really good. We're going to ask them to talk as well. So tell us about that. What was difficult about living in Bogota?
Oh, it wasn't so difficult. I loved living in Bogota. My job, I was a professor at the Nacional, La Universidad Nacional, I lived in the Palermo neighborhood. I walked to work every day, and I walked home from work every day. I loved traveling all over Colombia. And I hiked in Colombia. Do you know hike? I walked all over Colombia in the Camino Real. Mm-hmm. I walked from, for example, down to Villavicencio, I don't remember the town, 4 days. I walked El Cañón de Chicamocha. I walked all over Colombia. I loved walking all over Colombia. It's a beautiful, beautiful country. Mm-hmm. Beautiful people. So it wasn't difficult. It just wasn't difficult.
Long time ago now.
It was a long time ago. It was much smaller, not so many people. And the traffic was not difficult.
Yeah, you've been here since and you don't like it as much with the traffic. Okay, we have a question here. Quarantine or social distancing is mandatory for some people. So are some people, is it mandatory right now in Seattle to?
Yes, it's mandatory in the state of Washington. So most of us do it without a problem. But in those red places, they don't do it. People are still like going to church. That's a problem. And they get sick when they go to church, for example. But it's mandatory, yes. But hard to enforce.
It's hard to enforce, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have here, I think Sanjay again wants to ask the question. So go ahead, Sanjay.
I'm really sorry. I don't know why.
Again, did you raise your hand again?
Sanjay, you have to ask a question.
Something.
Ask a question, okay. Well, this is a very general question, and given that you've lived in different parts of the world, it's a very general question. How would you say Colombians and Colombian culture compares to culture in Seattle?
That's a very big question.
It is, yes.
Colombian culture is much more collaborative, much more social.
Okay.
Seattle culture is much more individual, and especially in Seattle. We are famous in Seattle for something that people call the Seattle freeze. Okay. Freeze is being cold. In Seattle, it's difficult to make friends, to make new friends. In Colombia, it was easy. People are so friendly and so helpful. Mm-hmm. Seattle, much less. So I would say that would be one big difference between Seattle and Colombia.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But it's interesting because that's true. Yet, for example, there's a sense that a lot of people in Seattle anyway feel that they have to do right in the world and you have to help each other and you have to, you know.
There's a sense of social responsibility in Seattle.
Social responsibility.
Yes.
We have another question here. So it says, which has been the position of Congress in the United States about Trump's policies to manage COVID-19?
Trump is...
Trump. Okay, this is... Yeah.
But he's not managing it. What Trump wants is to be elected president in November. That's all. So he doesn't really manage the problem. He just tries to make people think there's no problem.
But I think the question, okay, that seems like your own personal opinion, but the question is more like, what does the Congress, like how does the Congress versus the president, and kind of like can you tell us
the Congress, the House of Representatives can give money. So they're trying to give money, and then the money often goes to Trump's friends. That's a problem. But they're trying to manage the economy more than anything else. The people in the country, most of the people and most of the governors want Trump to manage the crisis with testing and with norms and with materials, masks and testing materials. But he doesn't do that. But we want him to do that. It would be much more effective at the federal level than at the state level.
Right. Very complex issue.
Very complex.
Okay, good. Okay, well, thank you very much to everyone who participated in this webinar. Send us your comments, email us, let us know what you liked, what you'd like to hear about more in the future. That would be also so we can plan these webinars a little bit more. Oh, we have another final question. Do we have time?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. 5 minutes. Let's see. What do you think about the gun policies and the shootings in the schools? Okay. Wow.
Well, I believe this country is the red people. There's too many guns. I believe we should have laws. Many states have almost no laws with guns. Like that man in the store. Do you remember the man with the guns in the store? That is possible in most of the states in the United States. So I believe we should have strict regulation of guns, but Congress doesn't. And a lot of people don't. The people in the red part of the country want guns.
But what about the schools? Why is there, these
It's crazy.
shootings in schools?
Right now, many of those people who like guns want all the teachers to have guns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, arm the teachers.
I disagree. But that's another big subject.
That would be a good topic for a webinar, wouldn't it? Yeah?
I would love to come back and talk about guns another day. I'm anti-gun.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who participated for your questions, for your comments in the chat box. So have a good evening. Stay safe.
Stay safe. Stay healthy. That's what everyone here now. Everyone here ends every conversation now. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Oh, really? Okay. Stay safe and stay healthy. Okay. Yes. All right. Okay, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Good night.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. It was fun. Thank you.
Well, that was all very good. Excellent.
We have 44 people still in the room.
Now, on, they're going. Good.
I'm sorry we didn't get to answer the last few there was 2 good questions in the Q&A, but they were kind of asked at the end, so we didn't get to them. But maybe we can do another webinar with these topics if they're interesting.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's a lot of things to discuss. One thing, wait, could you?
What do I do?
The slides?
Yeah, tell me. Could I what? Send you the slides. Yeah, I will do that. I will make a PDF. Oh, I forgot to say that the PDF has links, to the various kind of things that we showed, so they can look at it. Okay, we'll talk in a moment, okay? Thank you. Bye.